Welcome boys and girls from YouTube, my name is Sloth, this is the SlothForge, and thanks for stopping by on today's Hero Guide or Hero Spotlight. Today we will have an in-depth look at Ivellios, because once again he is an extremely strong hero, but there is a little bit of confusion sometimes when it comes to Ivellios. I saw some Ivellios that were just built wrong, and I can see why people build him wrong, because the first thing that you see when you see Ivellios is he's a Dauntless hero. He cares about attack speed, so you would build him with high attack and a little bit of crit rate and crit damage. But this is the wrong way. No, without a doubt, this is the wrong way. You want to build your Ivellios with as much attack and as much enlightenment as possible, because he can deal so much derivative damage. But this is why we want enlightenment on him, and we don't need any crit rate or any crit damage on him. Also, of course, accuracy absolutely not needed. Only those two stats matter when it comes to Ivellios. Now, why? It is because of his passive, and this passive is the bread and butter of Ivellios. This is all what defines Ivellios, because every single time an ally is launching a basic attack, this hero, Ivellios, has a 10% chance of launching a follow-up attack, up to 20% chance if you scroll him, and this follow-up attack deals derivative damage, 60% of his attack, and also scales with his enlightenment as well. And now if you pair him, or Dauntless heroes in your team, and you should probably, obviously, pair him with some Dauntless heroes, this chance to trigger this effect is doubled. So you can have an up to 40% chance of triggering those follow-up attacks every single time an ally launches a basic attack. This is insane. This is extremely nice, especially if you know Dauntless. All what a Dauntless cares about are those basic attacks. There are some heroes, for example, Sutha or even, what is he called? Garrett. They don't do much, but all what they do on the battle skill and on their ultimate and even on their passive, they launch basic attacks. And they hit like 5 or even 7 times with their ultimate, and every single one of those hits counts as a basic attack. Or for example, Sutha, who every single time that she is dealing a critical hit, she is also dealing a second basic attack. And even if the second basic attack does not that much damage, it's absolutely fine, because you want just to trigger as many basic attacks as somehow possible. They don't need to be the strongest hits, but you want as many hits. You want to hit as frequently as somehow possible. And yeah, this is why many people actually will call Ivellios an enabler. He's an enabler of the Dauntless teams. He just makes those Dauntless teams that are already strong on their own so much stronger. So this is why you should absolutely use Ivellios. But he's not complicated, but there is some things that you have to keep in mind if you try to build a team around Ivellios. So now this is his passive. Next, his battle skill. It's also relatively simple. First, he deals a little bit of damage in a small AoE area, which is decent, I would say. But the second part is very nice. He gains, or he grants an attack speed up buff on all Dauntless allies. Now this is very strong, because as I just said, all what your heroes care for are many basic attacks, as many as possible. So this attack speed up buff is extremely useful just to launch more of those basic attacks. So this is why this battle skill just fits perfectly into Ivellios' kit, and just in general into every single Dauntless team. And now his ultimate. His ultimate actually is not that special, to be honest. First, it is single target, like many or most of those Dauntless heroes actually are, and it deals not that much damage, to be honest. Or it scales at least not that good. Only 200% of his attack, and also derivative damage, so once again it scales not only with attack, but also with his enlightenment. And then the second part is actually, this is where it gets interesting, he ignores 100% of the defense of the target. So this is actually why I saw Ivellios one-shotting some heroes in the arena more than once. So this is actually relatively interesting, because he can ignore the defense, but it is definitely not what makes this hero so strong. This hero is all about his passive, and also actually this attack speed up is also very useful. Now, these are Ivellios skills. And I also already mentioned the stats that you want. You want attack and enlightenment. Now let's talk real quick about his gear. And it's the same question as nearly always. We want, if somehow possible, 4 pieces of four one-piece sets of those mythical items. And by far the strongest, once again, is the Death Record set and the Strike the Unprepared. And for your top row, you want the Fearless Challenge and the Chaos Symbiosis. Because we don't build him with any accuracy, we don't need the Magic Crystal Refinement. So if you somehow can manage to give him 1 piece of Fearless Challenge and 1 piece of the Chaos Symbiosis, then it's absolutely fine, and he will highly benefit from those 4 different 1-piece sets. Now, when it comes to his artifacts, it is also relatively simple, it's relatively straightforward. It's once again the Queen's Fan. The Queen's Fan is so strong on most of those derivative damage dealers, and just the same for Ivellios, because he's like a ranged hero, so that means he's always in your backline, and so he has no problems to reach the maximum distance between him and the enemy. So you will easily get those 35% damage increase, because you will easily be 5 tiles away from the enemy. So no questions asked, the Queen's Fan is the strongest artifact when it comes to Ivellios. Now the second strongest artifact when it comes to Ivellios is actually, in my opinion, the Y-Link. Now I did a little bit of testing, and I'm quite sure that this is the second strongest artifact when it comes to Ivellios, because it also provides this 35% more derivative damage. The biggest difference actually is that the Y-Link first will not allow you to deal any critical hits, which is not that big of an issue, to be honest, but it provides not that many stats. And this is the way bigger difference, or the biggest difference actually, between those 2 items. And of course, on a melee derivative damage dealer, you cannot use the Queen's Fan, so this is another difference. But now when it comes to Ivellios, it is relatively fine to go with the Y-Link as well if you don't have access to the Queen's Fan yet. You will deal less damage, but it is not that big of a difference. It is a big difference, but it is not the end of the world. Your Ivellios will still deal a very good amount of damage with the Y-Link. And that's it when it comes to the artifacts. I'm quite sure that those are the 2 strongest artifacts for Ivellios, but if you have any other options, if you have a better idea, or you are using another artifact, please let me know in the comments below. I'm as always very interested in your ideas and your opinions, but I think that those are the 2 strongest artifacts when it comes to Ivellios. Now, the next part, let's talk about his talents. And I would highly recommend to go with the top row for his talents, because now the Thunderclap is not that interesting. It gives you a little bit of additional damage on his ultimate, but as I said, his biggest damage comes not from his ultimate. The biggest damage comes from the many basic attacks or attacks that he is launching. And this is why the Puncture Wound is so good for your Ivellios. Because every single time you are dealing damage, you deal an extra damage equal to 5% of his attack. Now, 5% does not seem that much, but since you are triggering so many of those passive effects, you will deal so many small damage numbers, which every single time you deal an additional 5% of his attack. So this is why I would highly recommend to go with the top row. Also, this 12% attack increase is very useful, because you will have 3 buffs up for a very high amount of the fight. So this is why I also like this talent a lot, but it is all about the Puncture Wound. Now, you could in theory go with the bottom row as well, but the flurry of attacks only triggers if you are dealing basic attacks. And this is very important to note, every single hit that he is triggering or launching with his passive count as attacks and not as basic attacks. So this is very important, because if those hits would all count as basic attacks, then it would be absolutely insane. This would just go nuts and would probably be the strongest, the by far strongest combination. Pair him with Nastyanka and it would be absolutely insane for a Vortex boss. And it is already insanely strong for a Vortex boss. Now, the combination of Nastyanka and Ivellios is the second strongest team for Vortex, or just for single target damage in general, for Season 1. So this is how strong Ivellios is, especially if you pair him with Nastyanka. But this is the reason why I would recommend to go with the top row. It provides just a little bit more DPS, in my opinion. But once again, if you have other options, if you have better ideas, or if you are using other talents and you get more damage out of your Ivellios, please let me know in the comments below. I'm always up for some additional testing. But well, I think that's it actually when it comes to Ivellios. Now let's talk a little bit about his gear. The next part. Not his gear, about his team. I'm sorry, guys. Because as I said, his bread and butter is his passive, but this passive does not get activated from him on his own. Or not, yeah, not from him on his own, sorry, but from all of his allies. And this is the reason why it is very important to build a team around Ivellios. Because I prepared some screenshots here for you. First, here, as you can see, now I've paired him just with some other Resplendence heroes, so that we still have the five, what is it called? Psyche Core bonus? I don't know, the 5 Ascended bonus? You know what I mean, yeah? I will show it to you real quick. Because here in the Elemental Affinity, those buffs, they are only up, and those buffs as well, if you have 5 heroes of one element. So this is why in the first screenshot, I paired him with other heroes from the Rally faction, so that this buff is still up, to make it as comparable as possible. Apart from that, only he and Nathaniel are built. Those 3 heroes don't have any gear. And as you can see, he's only dealing about 13,000 damage, which is not that much, to be honest. Now, if we just pair him with some other Dauntless heroes, all of a sudden his damage is more than 3 times his original damage in this team. And as I said, I did not change anything. He has the exact same gear, and those heroes here don't have gear as well. It's just because those heroes launch so many more basic attacks than those rally heroes do. They deal some small single target hits, or with the ultimate maybe 2 or 3 hits, but they don't count as basic attacks. So they're launching so way less basic attacks, and this is the reason why here he has so much more damage, even though the heroes actually are a bit worse. And now if we use some other heroes that are launching even more basic attacks, for example, Tarival or Sutha, you can see that his damage goes up by another 10,000. So this is what I mean when I say it is very important to build your Ivellios in a good team, or you build a team around Ivellios. You want to pair him with other heroes that can launch as many basic attacks as somehow possible. So now let me show you some of the very strong options for your Ivellios. Probably the hero that is probably launching the most basic attacks, now apart from Nastyanka obviously, is Tarival. Because he gets so much attack speed, and this is why he is launching so many basic attacks. So if you have Tarival, pair him with Ivellios, and you have a very strong duo that can... Yeah, I've been using this duo actually for some dungeon content for a very long time. Only those 2 are absolutely enough to kill most bosses out there. Another very strong, extremely strong hero for this purpose is Sutha, because of her passive. Every single time that she is triggering a critical hit, she is spawning a phantom, also launches a follow-up basic attack that deals attack damage as well, and this counts as a basic attack as well. So this is why she is triggering many, many of those basic attacks. And also here she has like a 5 times hit on her ultimate, which is also counted as a basic attack. So this is why she pairs very, very well with Ivellios as well. Also Garrett is very good for this purpose. He is little slightly bit worse than Soother. So if you have both of them, you should go with Soother. But if you don't have Soother, you can use Garrett as well. He will do the job just as good as Soother. Also, Divine Ascetic is good for this, but he is actually not the strongest. He is more like a hybrid version for Dauntless, because he's also dealing a little bit of AoE damage. So he's good at launching many basic attacks, but he is not the best. Also, some very strong options are Nimbus. He's also launching many basic attacks. And Chargol, actually, is also a very strong Dauntless epic hero that many people underestimate a little bit. He is very strong. He's launching many of those basic attacks and just helping you Ivellios to deal so much more damage. So this is why, yeah, what I mean when I say you have to keep this in mind if you build a team around your Ivellios. Try to pair him with other heroes that launch as many basic attacks as somehow possible. Because as you can see, just to show this once again real quick, this is such a high difference between 56,000 DPS and 13,000 DPS. It's like, it's more than 4 times the damage, and he has the exact same gear. And I'm not using anyone with defense down or something, defense penalty or something here. It's all about those basic attacks that those heroes launch. And just to show this real quick, just out of fun, this is what his DPS gets if you pair him with Nastyanka as well. But to be fair, in this team I also used a little bit of gear on those heroes, and I think the Soother also had the Witch Remains, so we also applied the defense penalty debuff. But yeah, this is like a very good DPS number if you compare this to other Dauntless heroes. And this is why many people say that he is kind of an enabler, because he just benefits from all those basic attacks that gets launched in a single battle and deals just so many. He launches so many of his passive triggers, and this is actually so much fun to watch as well. So I mentioned this in another video. I really enjoy playing with those Dauntless heroes just because it looks so cool to watch all those thousands and thousands of numbers popping up. And yeah, it is absolutely, it's a mess, but it's so much fun to watch. And as I said, it is probably, or not probably, it is for sure the second strongest Vortex team right now as well. Flora teams are a little bit stronger, but also those Flora teams are very much RNG, and your Dauntless heroes don't have this issue when it comes to RNG. They deal so much damage that it's absolutely, yeah, it's like always nearly the same. Of course, there is some little bit of luck when it comes to crit hits and so on, but in general, just to show you this real quick, right now the strongest player on our server, he's using an extremely crazy Dauntless team. Like, of course, he has all those heroes at Inspired 5, but as you can see, he's using Ivellios, and I'm absolutely confident and 100% sure that Ivellios is has the second highest DPS in this team as well. Just, yeah, to showcase this real quick on how strong Ivellios is. But of course, as you saw, it is inspired fully, the whole team is fully inspired, so this is not the best example, but you know probably what I was going to show you here. Those Dauntless heroes are very strong, but they need Ivellios and probably Nastyanka as well to fully shine. And well, that's it for today's video. I know I said the word basic attack like 100 times in today's video. I'm sorry for this. So yeah, but that's it. This is when it comes to Dauntless. They are all about those basic attacks. But well, that's it for today's video. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and see you in the next one.